Hello everyone and welcome to The Birth of a New Dimension. So my name is Aurora and I usually casually introduce myself as a galactic walk-in. Today I'm going to describe that much more because I think that it's important to have terms and to have clarity laid out properly. Brief pause. Okay, so the genesis or the idea, the backstory for why I'm doing this recording today is an extensive conversation that I had where a person with a relatively distasteful idea or image of the New Age community was interpreting me through their filter, and they had heard of the term walk-in before, and it made it very difficult for me to even present my ideas to the person with clarity. So let's talk about what does this mean to be a walk-in, and please allow me to define myself not within the context of the New Age community. However you want to define that community. But basically, when I first came into this body was age 27, and it had undergone a real death experience, not even a near-death experience, but an actual death, like an actual metabolic death of the body, and also the consciousness that was housed in this body could not be housed in the body anymore, and it was literally destroyed. So this is not like the consciousness flew out of this body and went elsewhere. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to say that the previous occupant lives on a cloud somewhere, like strumming a harp or something like that. She doesn't. That ego structure was destroyed. That ego does not exist anymore. It's like saying a bell was ringing, ding, and then we stopped the bell from ringing. That ringing sound is not there anymore. And when I first, would introduce myself to people, like after I, as Aurora, came into this body and into this world, and I would introduce myself to people, I would say, "Hi, my name is Aurora, and I'm a dead person." And I understood from their, emotional reaction that was not a good description, that mostly people were horrified. They made a face that was not like, "I want to be your friend," when I told them that. So eventually, in 2004, a friend gave me this book called ET 101, the Handbook. And that book had the term walk-in in there. And the friend said, "I think you're a walk-in and that you should read this book and see if this applies to you." Brief pause. So since that time, I have been using the term walk-in in something of a presumption that it is an accurate descriptive term here in this time and place, in this social and cultural context, to describe the experience that I went through. And I'm now understanding that it's a limited vocabulary word and that it might not really describe what I experienced, and so I'm going to go more into it. But the person that I was talking with, they had somewhat of an agenda to say to me that they thought that I was just the previous occupant, but with some amount of brain damage. And I really invite and urge all of you to go to my website and look at my artwork. It's flyingrainbowlasagne.com. You just click on the artwork there. And the artwork that you see, I think, shows that this is not just the artwork of a person who has experienced brain damage. And again, I'm not casting aspersions on anyone else that's here, but if you look at the artwork, the perfect regularity, the symmetry, the math skills that are evident in being able to create something of that level of complexity, I think that shows that this is the artwork of someone who has transcended a brain injury, but not someone who, is still suffering from that. And that is really big. That's really important for me to make that distinction, because I think and feel that a great deal of the proof of the veracity of my story is that I do all the things that I do, like the artwork that I do, that I'm able to function at this high level, that I'm able to be here on the radio and to be articulate. So if you're a newcomer to this, broadcast, then you're learning more. If you're a longtime listener, thank you for listening, and you already have probably heard my story many times. The information that when I first came into this body as Aurora, after the previous occupant had been murdered and destroyed, that I did not have math skills, that literally all of those areas of the neurology had been disrupted so profoundly that I, the new occupant of this body, I could not distinguish between, let's say, a 3 and an 8. because they look kind of shaped the same. They're both kind of shaped like a snowman. And to me, they were the same. Like, they were like hieroglyphics in a foreign language. And I did not have math skills of addition and subtraction. And it would be about 4 years living in this body before I would be able to rewire, or I learned this word, neuroplasticity. But neuroplasticity, that means when one part of the brain begins to compensate for injuries in another part of the brain. So it would be like saying, if you lost your language skills from having a head injury, but then a different part of your brain that ordinarily would learn, French or Italian, learned English as if it were a foreign language, and you were able to compensate. But my math that I do now, it goes way beyond mere neuroplasticity, because I have superseded what the previous occupant could do. So if you were simply going on the basic logical presumption that Aurora is nothing more than the previous occupant with a severe head injury who has managed some form of neuroplasticity and rehabilitation, that would only work if I only achieved the levels of activity and, prowess in math that the previous occupant had. And I've superseded those levels. I do visual artwork that is now way more complex than anything that she could understand or produce. So I hold up my artwork as evidence of a lot of things, as evidence of my own sanity and inner self-organization. Because I understand, when I first came here, a lot of people did not believe my story, they did not believe what I had been through, and they didn't see the intelligence or organization in my ideas. And the way that I spoke at that time was not articulate as I am now. It took many, many years for me to organize the spaghetti in my brain and to be able to be on the radio like I am now, to choose the word that I actually want to choose. I had a lot of problems with aphasia. I had problems with vocabulary. I had to do a lot of rehabilitation in terms of being able to use my language structure, and writing has been the biggest challenge. As my skills, I have, regained or learned skills as if for the first time, the ability to orally or auditorily share my information has come more easily than the ability to write, to write with a pencil or to type on a keyboard and to share my concepts through that way. So I still feel a lot more comfortable either recording an audio track or recording a live video and speaking extemporaneously about my ideas than I feel in terms of sitting down with a paper and pencil and writing, an essay. Some people are really comfortable with that. That is still a bit of a stretch for me, and it has everything to do with what this brain has been through and, my efforts to supersede those challenges. But the point that I'm getting to is that I'm not just like the previous occupant 2.0. It's not just like we took all of the basics and the foundation of who that person was and then just, turned the power off and turned the power back on and rebooted, and now it's 2.0. No, it's not like that at all. There was a profound shift and there's a profound difference in my perspective. Because, so one of the things that I'm trying to get across is, these basic evidences. My artwork is very well arranged and highly symmetrical and highly organized. So when I first came here, my expression, my self-expression, verbally, was not as organized as it is now. So it was difficult for people to understand, oh, Aurora actually has a whole structured viewpoint, like the way that physics and math are a structured viewpoint. It was hard for people initially to see that I had that level of structure. So it took a couple of years, and I started to make this artwork and these complex paintings specifically to show to other people, this is how organized I am internally, so as not to be dismissed. A large portion of me being here for the first couple of years, maybe even the first decade, was just about proving to other people that I am not worthy of being dismissed. This is like saying, I'm not insane. So I'm not merely an insane, raving person, raving about flying rainbow lasagnas, and I'm highly organized. And so the other thing is, where did these ideas come from? Because it's not fair to just simply say, oh, you're the previous occupant with a head injury, turned off your reset button, turned you back on, you're 2.0. Where in the world did these ideas come from? Because they certainly did not come from the previous occupant, and her childhood being raised in New Jersey somewhere. That is not the origins of the flying rainbow lasagna. The flying rainbow lasagna was created spontaneously in that moment after the destruction of the ego that used to live in this body, and as let's call it a stellar consciousness, was able to be expressed in this body. And this now goes to, because I was also in, talking with this person, brief pause. I do those brief pauses to save my work as I go. I was talking with this person about extraterrestrials. So it's like, it is a challenge to share this concept of the flying rainbow lasagna with others when they have resistance to the concept of being from another world or extraterrestrial. So part of that was where this is coming from. And I had to make a distinction that I'm not an extraterrestrial that is a technology using ET. That those exist. There's these two basic camps, even though I don't like to make, a dualistic opposition, but that there are technology using extraterrestrials that use what we would call clank metal spaceships to fly off of the surface of their planet and to disseminate their bodies and their physicality and their ideas and their, products throughout physical space. And then there is an entirely different scale or level of consciousness that is the stellar network. And this is like the star itself, like our sun, Sol itself, his self, is a being. It is a consciousness, and it is connected to many, many other consciousnesses. And that entire network of consciousness could be considered a vast neurology, a vast like brain or thinking apparatus. And that's a different level of extraterrestrial intelligence. That's the level that I come from, okay? So people say, where do you come from? What planet do you come from? I don't come from a planet. So you are starting to see also the consistency of what I say here on the radio each week and what I share in my recorded classes, that I don't come from a location in space that you can point to with your finger in the night sky. I come from a values system. And this is levels of consciousness that believe in unconditional love and pure freedom for everyone. And that's an important distinction to make. It's not just freedom for one elite sector of consciousness to then oppress and harm and take away the freedom of all of the other levels of consciousness. True freedom means freedom at every level of consciousness. And so that is my momentum or motivation rather for creating the Flying Rainbow Lasagna and coming into this body. That I really perceived a great injustice in the death of the former occupant and in the cascade of events that would happen, as a result of that. And I, as a stellar presence, that's just why I say galactic walk-in. So here I am defining terms. I know I've been flapping my moving mouth parts for several minutes now. I am defining myself outside of the context of, the New Age hoo-ha, and instead saying that I am a being that comes from the stellar network. I'm ordinarily an abstraction that is made of pure energy, like, a bunch of photons, a bunch of light. And I'm not the only one. I'm working with a large collective, and that this is the value system of my collective is freedom for everyone. And I sensed an opportunity, like what in one set of books it is described, a cubic centimeter of opportunity, the tiniest little chance. And it was in the death of the previous occupant of this body that I could vibrate the structure of this DNA into a new format. I, as Aurora, I didn't have my name yet, but I, as this stellar being, could come into this body and do this. And that in so doing, the body would not die, because this was a murder, it was an unfair death, it was not something that was actually part of the narrative structure of the great composer. It was not part of the time field. And it was healing to the time field for this body to still be here and to still be walking around, walking and talking and metabolizing and breathing. And so this is I, as a galactic presence, helped to heal the time field by coming into this body and animating it and having these experiences as Aurora. And part of it is I could have simply come into this body. Something, each one of us on our journey, you are enough. Like, if I can give you one takeaway from this broadcast, it is that you are enough. Just existing, just being in the time field and being in your body is enough. And thinking your thoughts and feeling your feelings, what you send out, like that is part of your contribution to the symphony of thought, and that is enough. And if you, on top of that, also wish to do things like to give to others, to heal others, to, make an expression in art or music or dance or creativity or verbalization that somehow uplifts and gives to others, that is even, even better, icing on the cake. But the idea being that you embodying yourself or embodying your presence, physically here, that itself is a major accomplishment. It has a profound positive impact on reality. And that's also why, leaving the physical reality, if it is premature or unintended, has such a negative impact on the time field. I've described the time field as a living, multidimensional embroidery. And it's just like an embroidery, it makes a picture. But if you cut those threads, then the picture starts to look ugly. It was supposed to be maybe some beautiful flowers, and you cut a bunch of threads, and now it doesn't have a whole leaf. Well, when you kill someone, when you murder them, especially like these satanic, ritual, ceremonial deaths, that is like cutting the thread of the embroidery, and then the picture starts to look much less pretty. So the previous occupant and her death, that was definitely something that made the fabric of the embroidery of time less pretty and less profound and less good and less healthy than it could have been. And me making this flying rainbow lasagna movement or dance so that I could come into this body, that in and of itself was a profound healing. And I also, at the same time, expressed this flying rainbow lasagna experience and truth as a series of sculptures and paintings and animations that then it gets even better, in terms of what my contribution here is, because I'm sharing it with others, like making it available to others. So now I'm going to get a little bit more, just after I do a brief pause, into, more of the value system of who I am. Because I come here and I say I'm a flying rainbow lasagna, I'm the first, but I'm not the only. And I stress this on every single one of my broadcasts here and in my online class, Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. The idea that I'm the first person that did this. I'm like the innovator, like John Coltrane, who was such a wonderful musician, and he came up with all these, new, wonderful, fun combinations of notes. But he's not the only person who ever gets to come up with new, innovative combinations of notes. So the idea is, I'm the first flying rainbow lasagna. I'm the first one, the first apparatus that was able to be vibrated into this higher dimensional context, and in so doing, achieve an additional degree of freedom. I'm not the only person that gets to have more freedom. That would be like if I were a total, I want to say like an interdimensional fat ass, like someone who's very much about maintaining their own position of power over others and not allowing for equality, and who wants to be like the lone messiah and have a bunch of sheep following them. Like, that's not who I am, and that's not what I have taught. And you can look into my record very consistently that I have always brought the flying rainbow lasagna as an opportunity for the every person. It is not an elite or singular opportunity. So it's not like, first of all, you have to pay me $1 billion to be able to learn about it. No, in fact, I've done lots of barter, and I've even given away a lot of free coupon codes to people who are simply very interested in this possibility for their own energy structure. And it's not fair for me to say to humans in this time and place, pay to play. Like, I will only tell you about the flying rainbow lasagna if you give me this money. Because the truth is, it's not like you can go to a different place and learn about lasagna from someone else, and it's something that you really need to know about. And so I'm not holding it as a proprietary secret for myself. I offer it like really openly, like open source code for your DNA. That means take it and apply it to yourself. And also, I do not say to others that in doing so, you become a carbon copy of me. No, ahahaha. No, you don't all of a sudden have to start wearing only rainbow sweaters and, grow your hair long and call yourself Aurora. Like, that's not what the flying rainbow lasagna is about at all. The flying rainbow lasagna shape is analogous to a pencil with an eraser that you can now apply to, quote unquote, the movie script of your own life. You now become the auteur, like the writer and director and visionary behind your own life. So no longer do you have to rely upon some external intermediary that connects you to the divine, or that connects you to God, or that you pray to and says, please give me this thing in my life, or I want to be this thing. That you now have the pencil and the eraser to be able to, let's say, co-create that reality with your own self as a higher dimensional, divine being on a much grander scale than you presently are. So right now we are presently like analogous to little tiny cells that live, like my skin cell lives on the surface of my body. But we are trying to dilate our identity to the larger scale. And when we identify with this persona on a grand scale, that is the divine, then that's like our larger scale self is working with our smaller scale self, and we are both writing this beautiful narrative structure where everybody is healthy and everybody is vital and everybody is in the right place on the right timeline doing the right thing. That's what this embroidery of the time field is all about. That we are all interdependent. So this is a big thing also that came up in the conversation with this person. This whole idea of law of attraction. First of all, yes, law of attraction would work if you were in a totally unperturbed world that was not like a distorted funhouse. If we were surrounded by perfect mirrors, meaning the other people around you, then everything that you sent out would be perfectly reflected back. All of your goodness and all of your flaws would all be reflected back to you. However, we don't live in a perfect, unperturbed world of mirrors. We live in a distorted funhouse. The people around you are distorted. The time field around you is distorted. You can be the best person in the world, sending out tons of love, tons of prayers, tons of good energy, and being very charitable, and yet not have that reflected back to you. Sometimes bad things happen to good people. And you can be the worst heel, the most horrible miscreant, the most greedy, selfish person, taking it all for yourself, and you can end up having lots of money, having lots of good health, going on a vacation to the Bahamas, having a sexy girlfriend with long blonde hair, and nothing bad happens to you. That we are in a distorted time field. I think that should be evident. Look at some of the billionaires that are walking around this world. They didn't get their money by being really good and really helping a lot of people. They got their money by being, totally vicious bastards, and they are still walking around. They have not been like struck in the head by some space debris or, killed or inside, like no one shot them. Nothing bad has happened to them. And that's because we live in a distorted time field, okay? So you have to throw all of those basic presumptions out the window. And that's another one of those new age type things. I know there's a lot of people that believe in the Abraham vortex of wealth, like that if you just believe profoundly enough in these kind of euphoric good feelings of what can happen, that, hey, you can get that girlfriend with the long blonde hair and be on a surfboard in the Bahamas and, get all of these like fancy external levels of wealth. And clearly it's not that easy because you live in a distorted funhouse as opposed to a perfectly clear conduit for energy. If we lived in this perfectly clear conduit for energy world, then basically all of the best artists and musicians would be getting gigs. And all of the hacks, the people that can't really play their instruments and that are not original, those people would be working as dishwashers or, waitresses, or they wouldn't have a very good career. But it's quite the opposite. There's a lot of really, really talented artists and musicians and singers and healers, and they're barely making ends meet working at menial positions because we live in a distorted time field. So you gotta throw that basic presumption out the window that if you're good, you'll prosper, under a fair system. We're not under a fair system right now. So where did the idea, the concept of the flying rainbow lasagna even come from? It did not come from the previous occupant of this body who was, in the last moments or, death throes of the cellular death of her body. It did not come from that. It was an impulse that came from consciousness, and that consciousness is non-local. So it is very fair to say that it was not a terrestrial impulse, even though it was an impulse that was expressed through terrestrial matter, all right? And all of this has significance because it's kind of like saying, where did the flying rainbow lasagna come from? Believe me, when I first came here, it was a lot easier for me to simply pretend not to be a galactic walk-in or someone from, an otherworldly place, and to simply present my artwork and to sanitize out the whole idea of multidimensional consciousness and where this might have come from and what impact it might have on you. And that's like saying, like, you take coffee and you take the caffeine out of the coffee and you make it decaffeinated, or, you take milk and you take the milk fat out of it and you make it skim milk. Like, you're taking away the nutrition and some of the basic definition of what that substance is supposed to be. So that is what I learned from my experience when I first started to present myself and my work. And I was just wanted to say, like, yeah, well, I would say I'm a galactic walk-in because no one will accept or believe that. So I'll just show them my artwork and show them the flying rainbow lasagna, hope that they get it and everything. And it's like I started to realize that that was not only disrespecting my journey, like on a profound personal level. If whatever you have been through, if you are gay, or if you are a differently abled person, or if you're, a minority race, or whatever is your, challenge that you've been through, or if you've been abused in your life, to hide that from the people that you are expressing yourself to in the hopes of being accepted is like it is like going against or disrespecting your journey and who you are and what you've been through. It is a denial of who you are and a denial of your life experiences in the hopes that other people will accept you. And real love, real acceptance means I accept you with all of your unusual qualities, not just your, pretty, nice, well-formed qualities, right? So, because that's the whole idea. Like, if you are, an outsider in any way, and I just named those 3 particular things, like, being gay, having a body that's not like a fully functional able body, or being a minority race. There's really nothing wrong with any of those things, but it's all about context and social perception, and that people would think, well, would someone still buy my painting if I'm gay? Will someone still buy my painting if I'm in a wheelchair? Will someone still buy my painting if I'm black? Like, the whole answer to that is someone should buy your painting because it was made by a gay person, or a person who's had the experience of being in a wheelchair, or a person who is black or has that experience, in their ancestry and heritage. That those are the things that make you unique and interesting and set you apart from other people, and that they should not be hidden or denied. So that was part of my, trajectory, like many people go through. They want to be accepted. I really, in the early years, so profoundly wanted to be accepted by human society here that I was willing to, I just whitewashed my biography and totally I wasn't honest. And at a certain point, I realized that I was taking out the caffeine from the coffee. I was taking out the nutrition from the lasagna, because the whole story of where it came from is part of the profundity of it. It's part of what makes it special, and it's also part of how each one of you can benefit from my experience. So I did not die. This body did not die. It, died briefly, and then it didn't die. It got back to life. A miracle happened. And even though this brain had brain damage and there was neurological damage in the body, when you look at me, I walk, I talk, I dance, I sing, I do all of these things. I play the piano. I do all of these things that involve, a complex, well-functioning brain and body. That would not have been possible if I didn't do the miracle of the flying rainbow lasagna. That if I were simply the previous occupant with a profound brain damage, I would just be like a vegetable. I would be a person who couldn't really speak or express myself or move half of my body. Definitely not paint the, fine motor skills required for my paintings that I currently do, not be able to sing, and probably not be able to express these ideas. I wouldn't have gotten better at math by having a brain injury. Like, that doesn't happen. You don't recover your skills to the level that you previously had. You don't get better. And the very fact that I'm able to walk and talk and sing and function at a high level, that's because with the flying rainbow lasagna, I jump up and over or end around any of the blockades that are in this body. And I'm sharing all of this with you not simply to say, I am so great. Like, I'm not actually just here for purposes of self-aggrandizement. I'm actually here to inspire other people that might have their own profound difficulties that they are attempting to transcend. Because if someone says, if your doctor says your spine has been severed and you will never walk again, then you believe it. But if you meet another patient that had that same condition and they were able to be healed in some way, you say, that doctor was wrong because this patient did it. And so I am offering my life experience as a template for all of you to be inspired by and apply to your own life. The idea that when you die, death doesn't have to be the end, or that you can transcend the necessity of death. And also that any perceived internal limitation or limit of health or limit of vitality can also be transcended, and that we can eventually all, like as an entire planetary structure, transcend these social limitations that have been programmed into us. Social limitations like the death cult, the whole idea of religion that says that you must die in order to go to heaven, and also the economy that says that you must get money and that there's a limited amount of money, and these are the things that you do to get money. Brief pause. So if I didn't come forward and say, this is the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, and I, as a galactic presence or as a stellar presence, created this as an alternative to physical death. If I didn't say that, if I just said to everyone, like, look, here's this cool shape that I made, then I would be literally taking the caffeine out of the coffee. Like, you're just drinking brown water at this point. There's nothing in there for you. And it would be asking quite a lot for you to then say, there's something more profound going on here than Aurora is really alluding to, and I'm going to have to dig deeper and really see what is special about the Flying Rainbow Lasagna shape. Like, that is, I think, a little bit too much to ask of you, the viewer, or you, the audience. And the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, the shape itself, the concept that I, teach to other people, and the idea of rearranging your genes, none of this is meant to be disempowering or to make you at a lower level of the hierarchy. And I really hope that that comes across on this broadcast and all of my other work too, that I am always saying that we are like musicians in a symphony. I'm not saying like, I am a Messiah on a mountaintop and you are all of my following sheep and I am here to herd you in a good direction. No, I'm really not saying that, but I understand that that is the cultural filter through which I'm being perceived in this time and place. So it's really crucial for me to make that distinction. But no, I am not a self-proclaimed Messiah that says I am the special one and you are all like the lowly misfits or miscreants or idiot losers, sinners that I'm here to help lift up. No, it's not like that at all. I consider us all to be musicians in a symphony. And I definitely am a musician that plays, my instrument is in tune and I sound good, and I want to jam with other musicians that are also good musicians, that their instrument's in tune and they know how to play and they're musically literate. And they want to integrate, like they don't want to just solo and be a diva, that they are actually interested in integrating their music with others. That's what I'm here for. Like, I'm a thinker and an artist and I express my ideas, and I'm looking to collaborate with other thinkers and artists and people who express their ideas. So that's another thing. I'm big on this kick of collaboration as opposed to competition, that I come here with this values system that says, like many others are now waking up to, in order for us to really achieve the next level of, abundance and health on our planet, we need to stop espousing competitive capitalism, like cutthroat capitalism, and instead look for a more collaborative model. But I am not talking about communism. I'm talking more about like modeling upon the natural world. When we look at organisms that live together in a meadow, they are actually all communicating, working together, and sharing resources so that everyone thrives. And they all fight off pests together, and they all conserve water together. And that's what we can be doing as an economic community and as a social and cultural community. So I don't come here as a Flying Rainbow Lasagna and say, this is my work, I refuse to share it with others, pay me $1 million, otherwise I won't tell you about it, and then take it and keep it a secret. I say, no, this is open source code. Like the open source movement, the idea is, everybody, the computer programmers are working together. Instead of, this is my own particular program and I won't share it with you, it's secret and you have to pay me for it. Instead, open source is like, hey, let's all share the programs that we have and build it together like a Tetris puzzle and see what we can make out of this. That is how I approach this world and how I offer the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. And again, like, I really think that you guys should understand from my value system that I exhibit in my daily life who I am and where I'm coming from. Like, I'm not a liar, and I'm not one of these extraterrestrial overlords that is like here to take prisoners and to manipulate other people and to keep you beholden in some way. Not that at all. I'm really an artist on a journey of freedom. That's who I am as a non-terrestrial presence, and that's also who I am when I'm here in a physical body. And that's also the people that I come from, or the value system of the people that I work with on a higher dimensional level. That those beings are also artists that are interested in freedom of expression and collaboration and working together with others. And that is what life is like at the level of the stellar network. So it has been somewhat of a challenge for me to be here in this economy that is based on competition and on not collaborating and not on working together, and to somehow find a way with integrity to earn my money, like for my daily existence, within that paradigm or within that context. So in distinguishing myself from some of the other like new age community members or whatever, let me just say this, like, I'm kind of always like shocked and surprised when I see that there are people that are up on a stage and they're talking, they have like crazy stories, about living on Mars for years or whatever is their origin story. But people seem to accept their origin story, with very little skepticism or critical thinking. And at the same time, the person on the stage does not have any like ideas or anything to show where they've come from. Like, here is the analogy that I can use for you. If you could travel back in time, but you just couldn't bring any physical things with you, but just your mind, you could go back in time to the Neanderthals and you could say, I am a special person from the future and they're all these things. And they would be like, okay, great, like prove it to me. You cannot bring back, a flashlight or a laser or something like that. But what you can do is bring back a concept like a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And you can show that to them. But then it would take those people being sophisticated and intelligent enough to recognize the profound intelligence behind a squared plus b squared equals c squared. They might not be at that level yet. So the people that are saying that they come from some, advanced civilization on Mars and now they've come to Earth to tell you all about it, it's like, that's cool. I know if you can't bring an actual flashlight or something, but can you at least bring a math concept or some other non-physical, evidence of the truth of your provenance, of where you're coming from? None of them do that. But I actually do that. I actually have the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. This is like, and my artwork saying, this is actually like the visual evidence of where I'm coming from, of who I am and what I'm doing here and where I'm coming from. And yet I still sometimes am facing some, resistance in acceptance of that basic truth of what I have experienced. So, at the very basic level here, what I am doing in this particular episode of this broadcast is just reaffirming or reasserting this truth. Okay, I understand when I say to people that I'm a galactic walk-in or that I am a stellar presence, a lot of the time they say, well, everyone here is. I did not understand until my conversation today that many people feel diminished in the presence of greatness. That many of them, if they meet someone who says, I am a stellar being, or I'm a star, or I'm from the stars, that they would turn it around to themselves and say, I am less than the star. I am less than the stellar network. I am not a part of that. I'm not as good. So then they say, well, we're all from the stars and we're all here and we're all... So let me just clarify. It's like, if I can say to you, like, I can play the piano. Like, yo, I can play the piano. That's just a basic fact of my life. And I am not casting aspersions on or looking down on anybody who can not play the piano or who can play a different instrument or who cannot play any instrument. And when I freely express myself with my music, I'm not doing it to be like in your face. People who can't play, I can play my piano and you can't. Like, no, that's not my attitude at all. If you can imagine, when I play my piano, when I make my artwork, when I express my truth through my body and through my voice, what I'm really doing is joyfully expressing my truth. I'm really not doing it in order to condescend to anyone else. Like, I am not a woman that says, I am so beautiful in comparison to you ugly person over there. I'm really not. And it's hard because I understand that there's that level of competition in this society, that some people are programmed in that way, that some women do walk into a room and they immediately calculate and compare all of the other faces and they say, who is the most beautiful? Mirror, mirror on the wall, right? Who's the most beautiful of them all? And then there's a whole social hierarchy based upon that. I'm aware of that, but I don't participate in that. And so I'm now also aware that in sharing spiritual truth or visionary acuity, like being really strong in your truth of what you know that you've seen with your vision, that some people might feel diminished in response to that, or in like being next to, in proximity to that brightness or that truth. But that is not the way I'm living my life or sending out my lasagna energy at all. So I keep on saying that I would like to find other collaborators, that I would like to teach other people how to flying rainbow lasagna with their own DNA. Someone asked me today, they said, do you even think that's possible? And I'm like, yes, of course. If I didn't think that was possible, why would I have an online class? It would be like saying it would be like Mozart. Oh my goodness, Mozart, you know something? They had just invented the pianoforte. That weren't there many people that knew how to play it. So, Mozart, he was a teacher also. He taught other people how to play the piano. He didn't say, I'm the only genius that's intelligent enough to learn how to play this musical instrument and you're all just at a loss. No, he said, like, I'm really good. Like, I'm Jimi Hendrix of the ancient world. I play this instrument and I can teach you how to play this instrument too. So that is how I approach the flying rainbow lasagna. That I am a virtuoso of the lasagna. And I'm not the only one, that you can also, with practice, learn to be a virtuoso of your genes. And that it doesn't mean that you play only my music. It means you play your music. In fact, I think I've said that many times on this radio show. In order to be a part of this cosmic symphony, you cannot be like an imposter that copies someone else. You can't be like a person that paints like Van Gogh or paints like Picasso. You have to paint like yourself. You cannot play the guitar like Jimi Hendrix or play the piano like Mozart. You have to play your instruments like yourself. And in life, like I said, you cannot wear a rainbow sweater and grow your hair long and pretend to be like Aurora. No, that's not what I am here to encourage others to do. I am here to say, take the flying rainbow lasagna and use it as open source code to unlock your own DNA. Because if I really wanted to be cutthroat about this, I could be like, I found the secrets of the universe, like the precious ring in Lord of the Rings, and I'm going to hold the precious all for myself, and I can do cool stuff, but none of you can. And I'm clearly not doing that. What I'm doing is really encouraging everyone else to do it, to the point that I'm like, join my class. I'll give you the free logon. Like, I've done that for people that are in, financial difficulties, or, here's how I feel about this. Like, the information in my online class has been profoundly life-changing in a good way to a lot of people. And sometimes when people have said to me, especially people that I know are like on a disability check or, have some like low-paying menial job, and they say, I really would love to be a part of your class, I just can't afford it. I make alternative arrangements so that they can have access to that information, because I truly believe that it shouldn't just be concepts and nourishment that is only available to people of a certain rung of the ladder of the socioeconomic spectrum. It shouldn't just be that you can afford to learn about the flying rainbow lasagna if you have enough money to also, pay your groceries and pay for your bills and take care of your health care and your gas and all that. Like, There's a significant portion of the population that doesn't have it together on that level. And if I were a totally cutthroat capitalist that was all about the profit motive, then I would say, hey, you know something? Like, don't pay your electric bill and pay me instead, and then you can be a part of my online class. And I don't do that because that is not appropriate to actually trying to offer these concepts to the humans that are on Earth right now. That everybody who's on Earth right now should be allowed to learn about this if they want to, and it shouldn't just be something that is based on how much money you have. And of course, at the same time, I require food and rent and gas and healthcare and all of those things that come from being submerged within this socioeconomic spectrum. So I always ask that people make some kind of contribution or alternative energy exchange or barter or help to promote my class. But I share this concept with you, or share this evidence of my own behavior with you as evidence of my value system. Because, Bill Gates totally doesn't care about whether you don't have a lot of money and whether, you'd love to buy his software, but you just don't have the money. He totally doesn't care. And that's why he's a billionaire, because he totally doesn't care. He just is a cutthroat capitalist, and he has, like a sponge, squeezed out whatever profit he can from every situation. And clearly I'm not that. And the reason I'm not that is because I'm the flying rainbow lasagna. I'm at this level where I not only do not have to be that way, but I do not find that to be effective. What I find to be effective is collaborating with other people, working together as a system, and not instead, drawing all of your energy from, slurping up energy from, siphoning energy off of everyone else, and then trying to live in a fortress. Like, I'm this person, I, totally exploited everyone else, and now I live behind my gated community with my security people, protecting me from all of the people that I just, totally screwed over in order to get my money. I don't consider that to be an effective approach to life, clearly. So, and I think you're getting this understanding here, that the previous occupant of this body, she would have expressed more of the values of the community that she came out of, and that I, as a member of the stellar network, am expressing here on Earth, through this physical female body, the value system that I came out of. I actually found it difficult to understand and believe that people in this time and place treated each other so very shabbily. Didn't understand it at first. I didn't understand also verbal subtext, that the meaning behind words did not match the literal words, rather, but I also did not understand that someone might be, fighting against someone else or not rooting for their success. Like, it had to happen to me actually a couple of times that someone would want to either condescend to me, denigrate my work, or not assist me. If a person could have gotten me a show in a gallery, but if they specifically choose not to, that was the first, I had to actually get an inkling. I had to actually learn, oh, some people do that around here. And they do it for purposes of competition, because they say, I don't want to help you. I don't want to help elevate you, because you will then outshine me. So I'm going to try to actually keep you small and keep you lower than me and condescend to you. And that was an education about that level of activity and motivation, because that's not what I'm like where I come from, because we find it to be, you get more with a different approach. That's the only best way I can say it. This is insanity. This approach of competition down here, it is total insanity. And you end up with a Pyrrhic victory at best, a salted earth retreat, everything is burned, but you're, in your bunker with your money. Like that, it's not really good. It's not really an effective, fun way of looking at the world. So, I am here and I joke that I have been terraforming this planet to make it a habitable, suitable habitation for a rainbow like me for about 15 years. And it is a joke that has somewhat of the truth, because I'm here in this symphony and I'm affecting many other people in the symphony. And I feel that over the past 15 years, my song has definitely reached some of the other minds here, and many other people are now collaborating with me and playing that song. It's the song of collaboration as opposed to competition. It is the song of being harmonically in tune with the natural world as well as the rest of humanity. And these are all preparations for becoming true experts who are ready to travel the stellar network, because you have to be like, if you're from the United States and you're going to visit Thailand or whatever, you should learn the customs of the Thai people and some of the language structure, and you should learn about the food. You should learn about where you're going, so that when you get there, you do not exhibit crass cultural blindness. And this is what each one of us has to do, first on the surface of Earth, appreciating how we can interact with other humans and other forms of life, like dogs and cats and dolphins and horses and redwood trees and microbes. How can we be harmonious and respectful with all of this life? So that means, according to the capitalistic competition model, if I want to have a steel mill, but it's going to harm these microbes over here, I really don't freaking care about it, because I only care about my bank account. But if I look at the world and I say, I am part of this symphony, how are my footsteps affecting the rest of the world? Am I squashing something just by putting my foot here? Then we begin to really act differently, and also to see, do I want to squash this thing? If I squash this thing, then this thing isn't going to be here to help me when I need help. And so that's what I'm saying. The idea of a Pyrrhic victory, or a victory that really only gives you nothing that you can enjoy at the end of it. The idea of degrading the environment of Earth so that people or companies can get a small amount of short-term profits and then have to deal with these levels of pollution that cause so much misery and death and disease, it is clearly not a victory. And so for me to be here in this world, I don't simply have to say, oh, look at all these idiots like polluting everything and making each other sick and all of that. I actually get to be here in this world sharing ideas about how to make better music. It's actually totally appropriate for me to say, I don't wish to ingest a lot of harmful pollution, so I'm going to sing this song that's all about how not to pollute the world. And this song is like a concept in my mind, and it's reverberating rather through my DNA and in my genetic expression. And I send out that song, and lots of other people hear it in their genes. And some of them act on it, and some of them don't. But the ones that act on it, they start to do their own singing, and they think, something, it is really quite idiotic for us to be polluting our own world just for a small amount of near-term profit. Maybe we should do something else instead. And there is definitely a critical mass, or something that changes, when enough people get together and think the same thought structure all at the same time. And this is like, you can be greatly, hopeful, because that is really happening right now. It is happening in terms of radically transforming humans' concept of ethics and where wealth comes from and who should have wealth, and how much pollution is acceptable in terms of creating wealth, and what is wealth and what is abundance and who gets to have it. Like, all of those conversations are being had in light of, is this sustainable? Can we continue onward with this? Brief pause. Because you are not only, you're not an isolated being. You're not just swimming around in your own private kiddie pool of your mind. And also, you're not in your own private island of economy. Your money comes from being connected to the social network. And so your income and what you spend is all about how you are connecting with other humans, and it is all affecting the rest of life on Earth as, where do we get our resources from and how do we act in this way? So again, this goes back to that whole New Age law of abundance thing. We are in a distorted time field where it is not appropriate to say, like, hey, you must not be a very good teacher or musician or artist or whatever because you're not very abundant. Like, no, the truth is, you might be sending out really wonderful, high quality, inspiring output, and you might be surrounded by people who are distorted, that they receive energy from you but do not send it back to you. And that is what it is all about. How can we heal this whole entire context so that now we are working together like a symphony, like a healthy body? You know something, your heart cells are not in competition with your toenail cells. Although your body sometimes has to prioritize. If it's a question of like, we're either going to feed the toenails or the heart, the body will always prioritize the heart. But the truth is, in your body, the cells do not fight for resources. They say, we got to find a way to take care of everyone, because if the toes die, then the body can't walk around, and it doesn't matter that the heart is healthy. Everybody's got to be taken care of and supported in this body. The body is planet Earth, and the body is not just humanity. The body involves the microbial realm and beautiful birds and everything that swims in the waters and everything that's here, and even mineral life, you know, like crystalline life, consciousness that might be housed in a crystal, if that's not too far, you know, to go with people's yoga of perception. That we are symphonic musicians in this amazing, complex life and consciousness structure. And so really, the challenge that we're facing right now is how to learn to collaborate with others, how to learn to collaborate with the natural world, and that is all preparation for being able to collaborate well with the rest of, you know, extraterrestrial life, life that does not live on Earth. And I say it a lot, you probably would wish to interact with the beings that don't use technology. They don't have to use technology. It's like if you're an opera singer and you're so good and your voice is so well trained and cultivated that you do not need a microphone. You can project, you know, like it better than any microphone can. But let's say that you're not a very well trained singer and your voice isn't very loud, and you need a technical augmentation of not only a microphone, maybe you also need some of that auto-tune software to help you stay on the right pitch. And that's what the technology using extraterrestrials are like. So, no, I am not associated with them or affiliated with them. And I understand also that there is an extensive economy here of like the UFO enthusiasts. And at first I was excited and heartened by that, because it's like, whatever. It's like if you're a purple gorilla and you go to a planet and they're like, look, they're having purple gorilla conferences. Like, this is the right place for me. I'm going to totally fit in there. And then you find out like they ain't interested in talking with purple gorillas, but they're interested in talking with like purple gorilla suits, you know. What I'm trying to say is that at the UFO conferences, they're much more interested in some kind of clank metallic spaceship based culture that uses technology, or something that is more physically recognizable than something that is a plasma based light ship, or something that is merely made out of consciousness. And I know that there are now some people that are trying to make efforts like for, I think it's called CE5, like kind of a telepathic contact method. That's a lot more along the lines of the type of expertise that I would encourage everyone to cultivate. And my whole point in bringing that up is that I have not yet been invited to these UFO conferences, and I've even, contacted a couple of the organizers and told them about the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. And it's like, if you are still only interested in, the clank metallic silver spaceship type of reality, and you're not interested in something that is more of a genetic vessel for transporting your consciousness, then maybe you're not ready for talking with these beings that are on a grander scale. Thank you for being with me on the journey. Thank you for listening. Long-time listeners, thank you, and I love you. And first-time listeners, please continue to tune in. Dance like a flying rainbow lasagna. Thank you.